Hello and welcome to my first stitch along on YouTube, where we're going to be stitching and putting together before Christmas the 16 Christmas block quilted hanging. So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much if you've already bought a pack or a kit. But however, whether you're going to stitch along or whether you just want to watch, I hope you enjoy it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're going to start with the holly design that goes in the top left-hand corner. So in your pack, whichever pack you get, whether it be 1, 2 or 3, you will find that there are 2 holly prints. I think I packed them in the order as they move across, so you might need to go through the pile before you find the second one, but the first holly should be on the top. So we're going to iron on some interfacing first. So again, in every pack you will get some of this lightweight iron on interfacing. So I'm just going to move this out of the way and cut some for the backs of these. Now you might want to cut lots of squares all the same size to go on the back of all the prints. But as you're going through, you'll see that as I've trimmed them down, they're not all quite equal sizes, so I'm just going to cut mine individually. So turn them over. In fact, let's just concentrate on one. Get your piece of lightweight interfacing. Now, some people might want to actually put the interfacing down. Now, I've got the glue side up. They might want to cut them. You might want to cut them that way, but what I tend to do is turn it over, turn my interfacing so that my glue, so the bobbly side is face down, and then I sit it just inside those outside edges there. I'm going to turn it so that it doesn't all slide off the table like that. And then get my scissors and I will just cut like that. So you can see it just sits inside the square, and that will just stabilize the fabric when you're stitching it. So I'm going to cut another one of those, and then I'm going to go and iron both of those pieces onto the back of my squares. Okay. So I'm placing my interfacing glue side down, bit of baking parchment, and then a really hot iron. I have my iron set onto linen, which is the hottest setting on my iron. If you don't use the baking parchment, the interfacing will melt underneath the iron. So I'm just checking there that it's stuck down nicely. And the same again with the second one. So just place it on the back, glue side down, baking parchment again, and a nice slow steady iron over the top. You might find as you're starting to stitch, the interfacing comes off or starts to peel off. Just go back and give it another iron, and that will stick it back down ready for stitching. So I've ironed the lightweight interfacing onto the back of both of these holly prints, and so now I'm going to start thinking about cutting out my felt. Now it's a slightly tricky shape, this one is, to do. You could make yourself a template. Now in pack 3 you get a piece of tracing paper, so if you want to make templates and cut the felt out that way, you can do. But what I'm going to do is to cut them out on, this is fuser web. It works in the same way as bonder web, and I think there are other different makes of things out there that do exactly the same thing. but you can't trace straight onto this because it reverses the shape. If it's symmetrical, you would be okay, but you can't trace the shape straight onto here. So what I'm going to do is to draw the shapes that I want first. So if I just bring back the original, you'll see it's all these, it's like half the holly on each of the shapes. Okay, so that's what I'm going to trace through. Now the stitch diagrams that come in all the sets, all the kits, they are roughly to size. So if you want to trace your shapes through from this, that's absolutely fine. But I'm going to trace it from the print. So I'm just going to move that out of the way. And just position that there. So I'm just going to draw onto here the shape that I want the felt to be. Now, if you want to do different felt shapes, that's entirely up to you. But this is what I want for my design. So I'm just drawing on the tracing paper the shapes that I want. In fact, I'll leave it where it is. I'm not going to, I won't move it. And then on this one, it's this top one here. If you can see that. So if I take that away and put a piece of paper underneath, there you go. So you can see they're the shapes that I've traced through. And now I'm going to turn them over. And that's the side that we can now trace onto our fuser web or bonder web or whatever it is that you want to use. So I'm going to trace these through onto here now. And you need to be quite accurate with your drawing as well, otherwise the shapes aren't going to fit. I'm only cutting the pieces out for one of the holly blocks at the moment. They are both the same, so whatever you do for this one, you will do for the second one as well. So when I've drawn my bits on to my fuser web like that, I'll cut round them, but I'll leave a little bit of a border around the edge like that. Get rid of that. Okay, so this is now my piece of fuser web with my holly shapes, and that I'm going to iron onto felt. Now in pack 3 you get all your felt in there, so this is how the felt comes in pack 3, and they're all labelled, and on the stitch diagrams you'll see there are little F's drawn in various places, and that just means that they're the places that the felt's going to go. Okay, so you can see on the holly you've got an F there, there and there. So I'm not going to cut into these blocks because they're cut correctly and labelled for kits, so I'm just using the scraps that I've got left over. Okay, so I'm going to use this green. Now if you haven't got the full set, the green that I've used, let me get the chart and I can show you, is from Billow Fabrics, and we'll put a link actually at the bottom of the video for any of the websites for materials that I've used. So Billow Fabrics, and it's apple, that one there. Okay. Also from Billow Fabrics, the red is Barnyard Red, that one there. Okay, we're not using that today, but that will be used in the stocking, which is the next one. All right. So I'm now going to go and iron these onto my piece of felt. So I'll position it sort of up here, and I'll go and iron that on now. Okay, so here are the sections of holly that are now ironed onto my piece of felt. So I'm going to cut those out. Again, you need to be quite careful because you want them to fit. I mean, if they're not exactly spot on, it's not going to matter too much. And also, you know, if they're a little bit big, you can always snip bits off as well. So as I'm cutting these curves, I'm sort of turning the felt as I'm going. So I'm sort of cutting down with the scissor blade, but I'm turning the felt, so that helps me to cut a nice curve. Right, let's get rid of all these little bits now. Okay, now if I had more than 3 pieces, I would say it's an idea to maybe number the pieces as well. If you've got lots of different sections to go back onto a print, it would be worth just numbering them. But when you've only got 3, I don't think it matters too much. Now this will peel off. As I say, it works the same as Bondaweb. So peel off the back like that, she says. Hang on. Maybe not on that bit. So you know about just scoring it a little bit if you can't get it off, and then that will give you a bit of paper that you can get hold of and just rip it off. And then hopefully they will all fit in quite nicely. Now you see there, look, it doesn't quite go with that curve, and there, you know, I could snip in a little bit more if I wanted to there, but actually I'm really happy with that, so I'm not going to cut any extra off that at all. Might just move that in a little bit so you can see that line there. Okay, so there are my 3 pieces of felt now in position. Now normally with Fuserweb or Bondaweb you would go back and now iron them into place. Because they've got the glue on the back, the glue would melt and they would stick onto whatever it is that you are ironing them onto. But because this is felt and it's quite thick, I'm not going to do that. I have done it before and it's fine, but because of the thickness, the glue doesn't always melt, and then I mean, you could turn it over and try and iron it from the back, but then they move position and it's just not worth it. So all I'm going to do now is to get my Pritt stick, and I'm just going to put a little bit on each piece. I mean, you could do 1 piece at a time if you wanted to, but I'm going to stick all 3 pieces down. Make sure that that line's showing there. I quite like that. There. Now, if you've not used Bondaweb on the back, sometimes when you cut wool felt particularly, it can start to disintegrate a little bit, come apart. The fibres will come apart if you've got these very fine points. So what I would say is, if you are not putting fuser web on the back of the felt for these fine points, either put another little bit of that lightweight interfacing on the back, or if you're not having anything on the back, just make sure that when you come to do the points, you get plenty of glue, whatever type of glue that you use, on the points, and that will help to hold the fibres together as you start stitching. There we go. Okay, so that's all 3 stuck down now. So we're ready to start stitching now. So let me get my other little snippers. There we go. Move these bits out of the way. Okay, so you can start referring to your stitch diagram now. So you can see on here, it shows you around the outside edges of where the pieces of felt are, there are these little lines. And that tells you that it is a little up and over stitch. So if you go to the Stitches I've Used sheet, you can see there's a shape here and it's got those little lines there. And that tells you that it is a little up and over stitch. I'm going to show you how to do that now. So these are all my threads. So in your kit, if you've bought a kit that has all the threads measured out, you'll get lots of these, and then you'll get numbered threads as well. So we're starting with number 1, and this is just a general machine thread. This is a Gutermann one. It's colour 111, and it's a creamy colour. Okay, and I'm going to just thread up my needle with that now. Now, people quite often ask what type of needle I use, and I think I said in one of my videos before, I'm not very genned up on needles really. I think I like a long needle, and I think as long as the eye is big enough to fit your thread through, and not too big, so you wouldn't want something like this one, for example. That eye is way too big. If you can see, I don't know if that's in focus, but that eye is way too big for this thin thread. But as long as, if the eye was too big, you see, your thread would just pull out when you start stitching. So as long as it's not too big, I just go with it. I'm just going to pop a couple of knots in the end there. I know some ladies like to do a little catching stitch on the back. I'm just going to do 3 because it is a very thin thread. And then I'm going to start on this one here. Now I work from the inside out with the felt, but there's no reason why you can't work from the outside in if you want to. That's just down to you. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. And I'm going to come up just a little way inside the felt. I'll get my needle placed. There we go, like that. And I want my stitch to go straight out. I don't want it sort of going off on a diagonal, sloping or anything. I want it to go opposite from where I've come up. So my next, when I put the needle in, I'm going in there like that. And with felt as well, don't pull your stitch too tight, because it will sometimes, because felt is quite spongy, it will kind of swallow the stitch up. And you might find as well that you need to make your stitches a little bit bigger than you would normally make them for the same reason. And I do this as well in one action, so I'll go in and then I will get my needle positioned like that, ready to come back out again, like that. Now, when you get to a point like this, it doesn't have to be right on the point if you don't want to. You know, you could do a stitch sort of there if you want to, but I tend to kind of, I'll just do a little one there just to make sure that that end is caught down. If you can see that, and then carry on. Okay, so I'm going to carry on and stitch all the way around the outside of all 3 felt pieces. Okay, nearly at the end now. I think I'm just going to put one final one on that tip there, and that will be enough. So I tie mine off on the back as well. There's not a lot of thread left in this needle now, but I'll show you with the needle still in. So, and I'm not sure how well you can see that because obviously it's cream on a creamy background, but I'm making a loop, I'm passing the needle through, making a knot, and I'm keeping it tight on the back by putting my finger, on top of that as I'm pulling it tight, and then that keeps the knot tight on the back, and it means that the stitch isn't going to come loose on the top. Right, okay, so I was going to say as well, I forgot to mention, I have had ladies on workshops who have sometimes mentioned using freezer paper to get these difficult shapes out of. So that is something that you can do if you want to. I tried with freezer paper. Now, I don't know whether it's because I ironed it for a little bit too long, but what I found was when I came to peel the paper off, it kind of lifted the fibres of the felt and made it a little bit fluffy, and then I had to give my felt a bit of a haircut. So I don't use freezer paper, but if you want to try that, then of course you can. But the Bonder web or fuser web, I just find it's a good way of getting a slightly more difficult shape cut out fairly accurately. You'll see on some of the other blocks when we come to do those, I don't do that. I won't use Bonder web or fuser web. I will on the next one because that's the stocking, and again you've got a little bit of a tricky shape on that one, but the Christmas tree, definitely not. They're just strips. But anyway, we'll come to that on a later video. So that's all my felt down now, and the next stitch I do is a couch stitch. So let me bring the original back over again, and you can see here, I'll move my teacup out of the way, there we go. So it's this stitch here that runs down the edge of the felt. So I'm going to do that one first. You don't get a reel of this. So this is on, if you've got the threads in the kit, This is thread number 2 that we're going to be using now. Okay, but if you haven't got the threads in the kit, it's a DMC number 413. It's like a slatey grey, a beautiful grey. I'll use this thread lots. It gets used in a lot of pieces of work. And I buy my DMC threads from the Wool Warehouse. Okay. Right, so I'm going to just cut myself a length of that. And again, needles for this thickness of thread. Let me show you the type of needle. 2 types of needle I would probably use for this. So this is a, I do know the name of this one. This is a, well, it's a Milliner or Milner, is it? I say I know the name. I don't really, do I? So it's got quite a large eye at the top there, or you could use a chenille needle. Again, that's got a nice big eye there, and it makes it easy to thread, put that thread through. So let's thread up the needle. Didn't do that very well, did I? Snip that off and start again. There we go. Okay, and again, I would not knot the end, so I'm just going to pop 1 knot in that, because that's quite a nice, decent size knot. And then what we're going to be doing are lines down the edge of the felt here. So for this, you want to come up at the beginning where you want your line to start, and then you want it to cover, to follow the curve of that felt there, and then you're going to go back in at the end like that. So can you see how that sits along the curve of the felt? And then I'm going to tie that off at the back. I'm going to knot it. So the same as I did with the cream thread, the sewing thread, make a loop with your thread, pass the needle through, but then you're pulling the knot down to the bottom, and then I keep my finger on it, pull it tight, snip it off, and hopefully, there we go, we've got a nice stitch there ready for couching over. So I'm going to do that on the other 2 as well. Okay, by knotting this way as well, you're never wasting any of the thread, because you're only really tying the knot, and then you're still left with thread in your needle ready for using it on whatever you're going to use it on next. So there we go then, that's all 3 done now. And on your stitch diagram, you can see that these lines are shown by this kind of dot and dash symbol, which is here, look. Okay, and this tells you about the couch stitch as well. It's a size 8, I didn't say, did I? It's a size 8 thread, and then I did tell you the shade, didn't I? And then over the top of that, so we're now looking at these little cream dots that run along the top of this thread. We're going to be using this cream thread. Now this is, mine's already opened. I'm not going to open a new reel for this, but this is a size 5 thread, and I buy mine from a shop called Yarn Stick. It's an eBay shop. I don't know whether they've got a website, but it's an eBay shop, and it's the thread is Torkel. Actually, what I'll do before the end of this video, I'll go and get one of the new ones so you can see the packaging on the outside, and because the little cardboard bit that fits in there, it's fallen out now, but that will show you what this is. And this colour is vanilla. So I'm going to cut a little bit of this as well, ready for doing my couching. So I just cut myself a length. And for this, the needle is one of the chenille needles again, but it's a much larger one. This is quite a fat thread, and you need quite a big eye to be able to thread that. And again, a knot in the end, like that. And then what we're going to be doing are little stitches over the grey, leaving about, I don't know, maybe a centimetre or so in between. So I'm going to start at the top here. So I've come up on one side of the thread and I'm going back down opposite where I've come up to make that little cream stitch. And then I'm going to move along, say about a centimetre, and do another one. I find with this thread, because it's quite thick, I can't do the coming up and going down and back in again all in one go, so I have to do each stitch individually. And you'll notice I don't use a hoop either, but if you want to use a hoop when you're doing your stitching, that's absolutely fine. If you want to, I mean, you can see I'm judging the distance between my stitches by eye, but if you want to be really accurate, you can mark them with a fabric pen, or as well you can, if you do two, you could do two little pen marks on your thumb and then just move it along and use that as a guide as well. Okay, so you can see I've got those five little stitches I've got in there. So again, I'm going to tie off at the back in exactly the same way. I don't tend to carry stitches across. I did when I got to the end of here, going over to here with that thin sewing thread, but I wouldn't carry across, particularly this thicker thread, because you find then if you are going to be ironing fuser web or bonder web onto the back of this, which we will be doing at a much later date, so don't do that yet, but if you're going to do that and then iron it onto something else, you get little ridges where all these threads go across, and I don't like that, so I like to cut mine off. So I'm going to do this on the other two now. Okay, so there's my holly with the size 5 thread. In fact, I'm going to go and get a piece of that. Okay, so there we go, that's all been stitched now, and this is the thread, Torkel Perle. So it's got a number 4 on it because that's the thread, and as I say, it's vanilla. Okay, that's the name of the colour. Oh, 1243, look. That's the number of the colour as well, and it was from Yarn Stick, which is an eBay shop. All right. Okay, so once you've got those thicker stitches on, I go back to the general sewing thread that we were using. There we go. I'm going to thread my needle up again. rid of that end there. Again, knot the end. So I think I put 3 knots in, didn't I, last time? Like that. And then you're going to do exactly the same stitch in between where you've done these thicker white stitches, and I usually manage to kind of fit 2 or 3 in between. I'm going to start up here actually and do 1 here, like that. So again, coming up on one side of the thread and going back down on the other, like that. And then you're coming back up. So say I'm going to try and fit 2 or 3 in that gap there, and because this thread is thinner, I can do this all in one go. So I can go in and then position my needle ready to come back out again, like that. So I'm just doing little stitches in between the large stitches. On your stitch diagram as well, where it shows this, don't take the amount of stitches that are shown for the amount that you have to do. That's just the way I've drawn it in. So don't think, oh, got to fit 6 in there, and it won't fit. Doesn't matter, don't worry. So just go all the way to the end. And can you see it? It gives this really lovely effect. I love couching. Let's just do those last few stitches. I could probably fit 2, I think, on that little end bit there. So do 2 there. There we go. That's it. And then I'm going to tie that off exactly how we did before. And if, when you get to the end, if you find that your thread that you've laid down has kind of gone a little bit wobbly, just get the end of it and just give it a little pull, and it will just help to pull it straight again, like that. Okay, so I'm going to stitch the other 2 now. Okay, so that's all that done now. So the next stage of this is more couching, and this one goes around the outside edge of the square there. Oops. So if you've got the pack of threads in the kit, we're now on thread number 3, and if you don't have the threads, it's another DMC thread, a size 8, and it's shade 415 that I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to thread myself up if I can find the end. Where are we? There we go. I'm going to use the needle that I used last time. But I'm going to tie the knot with this end because this is a little bit starting to fray a little bit anyway. So pop my knot in there. And if you want to draw yourself a line, you can, but the line's going to go in between this outside edge here. So I'm going to come up, if you imagine there's a little diagonal there, you want to come up about halfway through that diagonal, and your stitch is going to go all the way down there and then go back in at the next diagonal. Okay, and then to start the next one, rather than tying off, I come up really, really close there, and then go to the next one there. That's about there, like that. And then the same with this one. Up to that one there, turn it round so it's about there. And where it, I mean, you can see there it sort of started pulling in, but as you stitch you can pull that back into place. Now here the holly overlaps that a little bit, so I'm going to actually go behind there. So let's come up again really close to that. I'm going to go in there and go underneath and come back out again. I don't really want my line to go over that where I've carved out that shape, and then back in on that corner there. Okay, so you've got all these four long stitches, well 5 actually if you count that as a break, going around the outside edge, and then knot it like you did before, like that. Snip that off, and then to stitch over this one, we're not doing the thick stitches at all. We are using another Gutermann sewing thread, and this is colour 35. Again, it's like a slate grey. Okay, and I'm going to thread my needle up with that one. Okay, right, that's knotted and ready to go. So with this one, just use your thumb and be aware of the line as well. You want to try and keep it as central as you can, going along that dark olivey green background, and it's just little stitches all the way around the outside. So you can go in and then come up ready to start stitching again. Okay, so now it's going to take me a little while to get all around the outside, so I'll come back at the end once I've done all of that. Okay, so we're coming to the end now. I'll just get these last few stitches in. Actually, I did this in the other corner as well. I'm going to make sure I've got one right in the corner so that as I go in it will just pull those corners out like that, look. So it makes a bit of a nicer square corner, and tie that off like that. There we go. Okay. Right. So that's all the outside edge stitch now. And it's number 5. If you've got the threads, I didn't show you that, did I? If you've got the pack with all the threads in, it's thread number 5 that you're going to be doing that overstitching with. So there aren't any French knots on this particular block, so we're going straight on to running stitch now. So let me get the thread that you're going to be using for that. So this is another Finca thread. This is a size 16. It's a cream coloured thread. If you've got the pack, it's number 10. But if you need to order it, again, it's shade, I don't know if you can see that, shade 3000. It's a pale cream, and I buy my Finca threads from a website called Little L's. I'll put a link at the bottom of this, or if you live anywhere near to Honiton, there's a lovely little shop called Thimble Stitch, and the lady there, Zoe, who is absolutely lovely, she sells the Finca threads. She's got quite a wide range of the 16s and a few of the size 8s as well. So if you live there or live near to Honiton, it may well be worth popping in there and seeing if Zoe has the colours. I'll put a link to Zoe's shop as well beneath, okay? But it's the size 16 in the cream that we're going to be using next. I've just got to find the end. Just give me half an hour. Right, there we go, got it. I'm rubbish at finding the ends on threads, and I get really tangled up most of the time with them as well. Now I'm going to use the same needle that I used for my sewing thread for this thickness of thread, because it should hopefully go through the eye quite nicely. There we go. Let's just give it a little pull that side. There we go. Not the end again. 1 or 2 knots, I think, probably 1 with that one. And let me get the original over again. And I'm going to do these lines of running stitch here, and then also it goes onto the print itself, and that's using this cream colour that we're going to use next. Okay. Oh, and also it goes around this edge here, so we'll do that as well. Excuse me. And on your stitch diagram, all the running stitch is just shown with these little dashes around here, and on your stitch guide, your stitches that I've used, it tells you here, look, a 16 or a top stitch thread I sometimes use to do a running stitch, but you'll see for this project they're just all the Finca size 16s for this one. Okay. Right, so we're all threaded up, and I am going to do this all in one. So I'm going to start here, I'm going to go around the edge of the holly and then back down the middle. I mean, you can make these stitches as large or as small as you like. Obviously, the smaller they are, the more you will fit in. So I don't tend to do like big rows of you know, lots of running stitch all in one go, especially if I'm going round a curve like this. Back in there, and then we can come out ready. I don't want to go right on the edge, and I don't really want to cover over any of these little outside stitches that I've done, so I'm going to come up about there. That should be about right, like that. So can you see there where I'm positioned ready to do a little run down there? So probably going to fit 4 or 5 through there, and I'm going all the way through the layers, so I can feel, as I'm pushing down, I can feel the tip of the needle, look, just coming out the back there. There you go. So tie that off. And then I'm going to do the other two. Okay, that was just enough thread, look, to finish those 3 off. Okay, I'm going to take my needle out to tie the knot in this one. So again, make a loop like you do for a knot, and just pass the end through, look, pull it tight down to the bottom, and then you've got that nice secure knot again. Okay, so I'm going to rethread now and do the line around the outside edge. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to do this top corner first. So the stitches just sit inside the line, a bit like on the edge of the holly. I'm not on the edge of the print. I've just come in a couple of millimeters, and I'm going to do the same with this little line of stitches here. So I'm going to do 2 there, and then come out ready to start that line there. And then I think I'll probably fit 3 down there like that. Tie off again because I don't want stitches running across the back. I think also as well, if you have too many things going across, it can sort of distort your fabric a little bit as well as it starts to pull. So we're going down to this bottom corner here now. So I'm going to do 1 stitch there, just a little stitch, and then I think I'll probably fit 2 in there. Let me turn that round the right way so that you can see it the right way up. Yep, so that's 2 stitches in there. Now that's not a very long distance there, so I am just going to take the thread underneath there and come out and do that little run along there as well. I think I'll probably fit, yeah, about 4 stitches in here. So 4 along there, back in there. Tie it off again. Another knot in the end, and this is the last little bit here, because I'm going to do this stretch here, but again it's only a short distance there, so I am going to just finish off this corner with the same length of thread. So that's I've managed to get 4 stitches in there underneath, ready to start again, turn it round and then do that last stitch there. Just a little one. There we go. And tie off. And then the last bit of stitching now on this block is another running stitch, and it's using a red thread. So if I just bring this in again, so it's just this little line now that sits inside that that edge of that line of printing that we've only just stitched onto. So if you've got the threads, it's number 9, and if you're buying threads, it's another Finca thread, another size 16, and the shade is 1996. Oh, found the end on that one quite easily. Perhaps I've used it before. Right, I'm going to cut myself off a little bit of that. Get my needle threaded up and we'll stitch this last. A little bit. Right, not in the end. So these are all done separately, these little stitches. So there's some here, there's one here, which I will then take across and carry on there, and then we're going to do that little bit down there. So I'm going to start at the top, do one, bring my needle out ready to start. Those 2 stitches there, like that. So one there, and then take it underneath to carry on with that little row there. Again, I'll probably fit 4 along there, I would have thought. And the last little bit is this side bit here, and again I'll probably get 4 stitches going up there as well. There we go. Right, so that's your first block all stitched. We don't add any beads or buttons or anything until these blocks are put onto the background blocks, so don't put any beads, don't stitch any beads or buttons or anything on at this point. I would go now and will go now and just give this a little press, and so it will sit nice and flat, and I'll stitch the other one. So I haven't started this one yet, but I will stitch this one in exactly the same way. The colours are the same and everything on both of the holly blocks. With some of the others where they're repeated, the colours will change, but with the two holly blocks they are exactly the same. So I'm just going to go through now with you. I don't know why I've left that paper there, but anyway, I'm just going to go through with you now the other threads that you will use, so that if you do want to go and order some, you can order them all at the same time, and the felt as well. So let's do the felt first, actually. So I told you about the felt from Billow Fabrics. The green, as I said before, was the apple, and the red is the barnyard red. And then on top of the pudding, I've used cream from them as well. Okay, so they're those three. And then the grey, which is this grey here, I order from a website called the Cheap Shop Tiptree, and the colour is, oh, now let me just double check. I've written it down. Let me just double check what it is. It's Marl Soot, so that's spelled MARLSOOT V22. That's the shade that you're looking for if you buy from the Cheap Shop Tiptree. Now they also do the reds and greens, and they'll probably do a pale cream as well that you can use for the pudding. So if you want to order the felts all from one place, it was just that these were the felts that I had in stock, and so I've used the ones that I, from where I usually get them from. So they're the four different felts, sorry, 4 different colours. And then the other threads are, there's another DMC size 8 green, shade 580. So if I put all those together, you can see those, can't you? So they're the 3 from the Wool Warehouse. And then there's also this is a 16, this is a sort of a pale grey, and this is the Finca 16 again, and the shade, let's see the number there, is 8773. So that's number 11 if you've bought a pack. And also this slightly darker grey, this is another Finca 16, and the shade for that is 8785. So they're all your Finca threads. And there's also a green, which is this one here, and that is shade 5229. So they're all the Finca ones with as well as the red that we spoke about earlier on as well, that we've just used actually, haven't we, to stitch around the holly. There's also actually a Finca 8 cream. So again, if you wanted to order from Little Elves or nip into Zoe's and see what she has there, there's the cream 3000 again, same shade, but a size 8. And then the other red that I've used, and I buy this from a shop in Plymouth, but it's an Anchor size 8. It's shade 20, and it's a beautiful red. It's not too bright, and again I use this colour quite a lot, but I do buy that from the haberdashery shop in Plymouth. But it's an Anchor shade 20. And they're all the threads. That's all the threads and the felt that you'll be using. And then there are various beads and buttons as well. So I use quite a lot of these red wooden buttons. There are the little coconut buttons. There are some beads used on the mistletoe as well. Yeah. Okay, so that's your first block stitched. The next time it will be stitching the stocking, which is the next one along. I'm just going to work my way from left to right across the block. So we'll be stitching the stocking next time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for stitching along. Thank you for buying a pack if you've already bought a pack. And I hope you've enjoyed it. Okay, see you next time.